What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares! That's right, we're back at it on our month-long journey through the nightmares with yet another film to our bucket list of night terrors. And out of every single film that I'll be watching this month, this is the second out of a handful of movies that I've seen in the past, the first being The Loved Ones, but unlike The Loved Ones, I was actually looking forward to this one. It's Oculus. Oculus is a 2013 supernatural psychological horror film co-written, edited, and directed by Mike Flanagan. It stars Karen Gillan as a young woman who is convinced that an antique mirror is responsible for the death and misfortune that her family suffered when she was younger. So she plans on proving it's supernatural in origin with her brother before they eventually plan on destroying it. So as I had mentioned before, I was actually looking forward to this rewatch because I remember watching it when it first came out, not necessarily thinking that it's the best movie in the world or the scariest horror joint I've ever seen, but intriguing to say the least. And in 2013, when it first came out, Karen Gillan hadn't really been in a ton of movies before. I think that this was the first time that I'd ever seen her in a film after first seeing her in probably her most iconic role, Amy Pond in Doctor Who. And I remember thinking how weird it was to hear an American accent come out of her, which now, I feel like she sports more than she doesn't. But anyway, in my initial review, I had mentioned I'd rather watch a horror film centered around a mirror over a possessed doll film any day of the week, and the same remains true nearly a decade later. There's not only originality there, but a lot of potential as well. The mirror dimension, if you will. And over the years, I've seen a few mirror-related horror films such as, well, Mirrors and even Candyman, but not nearly as much as you'd expect to see, which is kind of how I feel about spider movies. I feel like there needs to be hundreds of seriously scary spider movies, and yet there's not. The first thing that you should know about Oculus is that it has the right type of vibe. It's eerie all around, it has a good sense of tension, mystery, and a handful of effective jump scare moments for those of you that enjoy that type of thing. It even has red herring jump scares where it builds up moments that you're pretty sure are just gonna be a loud, obnoxious jump scare, and then it kind of turns around and it's more of a tease. To me, that kind of just adds to the tension of the film so that whenever actual scarier things happen, you're more invested. You're more pulled into the film, and those moments have a bit more weight associated with them. Also, this is easily one of the best edited films when it comes to horror, as it weaves together events that transpired in the past through flashbacks and events that happen now. And it just kind of shows history repeating itself in a way while also explaining a few things while simultaneously befumbling your mind. I don't know if that's a real word, but it feels appropriate because this is definitely one of those movies that tries very, very hard to melt your brain and question reality. After all, this mirror in the film is pretty much famous for manipulating people, making them see things, making them do things, so that these people are pretty brave to even try to prove its supernatural origins when they also know that they can't trust the world around them. They can't trust their own eyes, their own ears, their own mind. You name it. So as an audience member, you're kind of in the same boat as them. You're not sure what's real, what's going to happen next, but you're still 100% in for the ride. When it comes down to the negatives, my main thing with the film is that it mixes like pure originality and intrigue with a lot of trope-heavy things as well. It's slightly self-aware in that though, so it tries to explain some of these tropes that you might see in other movies. And the explanation, it's tacky. It's a little bit over the top, but I did enjoy it nonetheless. And that's mostly because of how the film is executed. The fact that I was just as confused as the characters in the film means whoever was editing really did do a great job. Another negative that I have for the film is that towards the end of the third act, things just kind of go overboard in terms of craziness, and it gets increasingly harder to follow. The movie starts out pretty straightforward, but it ends pretty crazily. Some will love that, of course, and I did like what happened at the end, even though I could kind of see it coming, but it does make sense, and overall, I had a good time. Let's take a look at my final score for a second. B+ letter grade, final score of 80%, but you can also see a majority of that high score comes from what I personally just felt about the movie. Or my bias score, which I gave 88% to, while the technical side of the film, what I call the unbiased score, I only gave 72%. Because most of the technical achievements in the film was editing, which again was fantastic. A little bit of that was in the writing as well in terms of crafting the storytelling, but honestly everything else turned out to be more or less business as usual. But 80% at the end of the day is pretty good. But what about you guys? Have you seen Oculus? If so, I want to hear what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review of the next horror film on interpreting the scares. And until then, guys, peace out.